Hi, Shay Russell here from Fat Tail Media, and I'm coming to you live today from Melbourne. But joining me right now is Kerry Stevenson, founder of the Gold and Alternative Investment Conference. Kerry, thank you very much for joining me today.
Shay, it is great to be in a virtual world with you today.
How crazy is it that we can do something like this?
Well, isn't it great that we can do something like this? I mean, the world has turned on its head pretty quickly, and I think everybody has adapted very well. And the fact that we're live and going all over the world is fantastic.
I've got to admit, this time last year I would have thought, no, something like this couldn't work. But I've sat here today. I missed my deadline because I was too busy talking to people on a virtual world that I didn't expect to be speaking to. And it just goes to show how effective the digital tools have been. So we can try and, pick up where we left off.
Yeah.
Now, Kerry, I wanted to speak with you today because nobody knows more about the gold sector in Australia than you. Now, you have long been a gold advocate, long been a mining advocate, but you've been interested in being a self-directed investor for even longer. So could you please share with people how you came to, take charge of basically learning more about the markets yourself and how you got to where you are now?
Oh, well, thanks, Shay. Well, hopefully won't take because it could be a long story. But look, in essence, I got divorced when I was in my mid-30s, and the one thing I will say is they don't teach you about financial education at school. And many people out there will get involved with the relationship and think everything's okay, and they won't really think about how to look after themselves because they're kind of in this little bubble. And so when I got divorced in my mid-30s, the first thing I thought about was, what am I going to do to look after myself? And the second thing I thought about was, what do I invest in? And then the third thing was, how do I educate myself? And, the funny story is, I mean, I invest in a lot of things. And I often say this to people: make sure you hedge and diversify, because you don't want to put all of your investments into one opportunity or one sector, because if one sector is going down, another one might be going up. So I always say to people that follow me, and by the way, Shay, I know you know this, but just for everyone that's listening, I am not a financial advisor. So please do your own research. This is just my story. So I was living in the UK. I had a little boy and I needed to buy a house. And so I made it a bit of a game. I was going around making stupid offers. One day the agent came back and said, they've accepted your offer. Well, I was so naive, I didn't realize I could say, because it was pretty scary. I was like, where am I going to find the money? I somehow got it together. But at the time, it was like, well, what do I do now? I didn't know I could turn around and say, I've changed my mind. So but it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because out of the fear of how the hell am I going to afford this, looking back, it's like, wow, that was a great investment at the time. That got me set on my real estate investing, which is what my mum did as well, but just for herself. And then I realized that you can't have all your eggs in one basket. So I started looking at the share market, but also my mum loved gold. I remember growing up, she had some Krugerrands. Uh,
Wow.
yeah, we don't know what happened to them. No idea.
Ah.
So mum's passed away, dad's passed away. Uh, they did invest a little bit of physical bullion. But I do remember years ago, my mum taking some physical bullion from one place to another in Sydney. And when she got to the destination, they said, "Oh my God, where's your security guard? Where's this? Where's that?" And she was like, didn't know. She just it was just in a briefcase. And do you know what, Shay? The hilarious thing is, not that long ago, I did exactly the same. And after I finished, I turned around and went, "Oh my God, talk about history repeating itself. I've done exactly what my mother did."
Well, you know what? That's a good place to start our chat, because gold is portable and its actual value, you know, it can be hidden easily. I mean, this is the thing, like a 400. Yeah. I mean, I've got a fair amount of weighted gold sitting on my fingers right now. This is the thing, like you can move hundreds of thousands of dollars with ease and nobody would even know you're doing that. I mean, you might need to straighten your shoulder up a little bit, but that's it. So that's, gold has quite a dense value, but it's easily transportable. And I think that's very important point to make, because not all wealth is easily transportable or transferable. And that's what gold does.
Yeah. And you know, gold is not a currency, and I think that's important. I always say to people, gold is money, the rest is credit. And there are different currencies around the world, but gold is accepted anywhere. I mean, if you were living in Venezuela when they had the hyperinflation and everything went absolutely, I don't want to use the word because it would be swearing, but you know what I mean.
Certainly.
You know, if it was the people that owned physical gold at that time that actually came out of it okay. Look at South Africa, same thing. Those that had the gold from South Africa, instead of taking the rand, they bought the gold out. It's accepted anywhere.
And this is one of the things that we're seeing in Australia. I mean, right now, the Aussie dollar, there's a little bit of strength to the Aussie dollar, although not like it was a decade ago during the financial crisis. But we've got the Aussie dollar sitting a little bit up over 70 cents right now, which is essentially, you know, it's making our gold price a lot higher than it was, you know, this time 10 years ago. But it's a reflection of our loss of purchasing power. Now, I know this is a subject you're quite passionate about. So can we explain for everybody watching why it's so important to protect your purchasing power?
Well, I think especially now, Shay, because I was saying to somebody earlier today that, you know, back in the global financial crisis, yes, they were printing money, but they were printing money in the billions. You know, I shouldn't, you know, Mike Maloney would kill me if he heard that. They were printing currency in the billions.
Yes, he would.
They were printing currency in the billions back in the global financial crisis. Gold was at 1911 back in, I think it was September, October 2011. But, you know, back in those days, they were printing money, but nothing like they're doing now in the trillions, literally in the trillions. And what people don't understand is they just see their paper currency is what they term money. And I say, no, 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 it's actually just credit. And right now, as we're going through this pandemic, every government around the world is basically looking at how they can prop up prices. And the way they're going to prop up prices is they're going to force liquidity into the market. The way they do that is they're going to print more of your currency, and that is going to be a loss of purchasing power. And it's really interesting if you look at the share market, I mean, because everyone's talking about, again, if you go back to March, when we had that decline in the share market of about 30%, and there was a bit of panic on the streets, there was a bit of blood, and then things started to rise. And now everybody's kind of forgotten about what happened in March, which, by the way, is only 3 months ago. And they're all now, and everything is going up. And, you know, we've got these platforms like Robinhood where you can trade for free, and lots of millennials are opening up accounts. But I caution them to say, you know, be careful, because what goes up can also come down. And, you know, don't forget we had a dot-com bubble back in the early 2000s where everyone said, oh, no, you know, we're all there for the ride, etc. So I would caution people. I do strongly believe that gold still has a long way to go. But again, don't sell your house and your children and just buy gold or gold equities. Make sure that you understand where you're putting your money and for what reason. And for that reason, they should listen to people like you who have got, well, you've got a great understanding of gold equities.
Yep.
And that's really important, that people just don't shove their money in hoping for a quick buck. Stop treating it like a casino and treat it like an investment.
You know, Kerry, you couldn't have led me into my next question better. One of the things, I don't know if you noticed, is during, as the market started to rocket back up, the Australian Financial Review and the Australian and the Age, you know, all our local finance rags, started running articles on stay-at-home traders suddenly jumping into the market. The problem is they were retail investors diving in, and they weren't doing their homework. There was no homework being done. There was no due diligence being done. And this is the point that you're trying to make, is it's not a casino. Do your research. So
Yeah.
Where do we start with our research? Where's the best point of reference to go?
Well, the first person I'd say would be you, wouldn't it, Dave?
I didn't
Well, no,
expect that
seriously,
answer.
you know, spare your blushes, but, you know, if people want to understand what's going on in gold equities, you do the research. So,
That
you
is
know,
true. That's my job.
if I was talking to somebody right now, I'd say you need to go and subscribe to somebody like Shay Russell. She does the research, so that at least you can do your own research, but then go and look at someone else. Like, for example, Sprott. Sprott's got a big research team as well. And, you know, Rick Rule really understands equities and gold and investing. So, I always say to people, in anything that you do in life, get a great team around you. And so go and look at who's the best team and make sure that you get their intelligence, then make your own mind up, of course, but that's doing your own research. That's understanding a little bit more. And if you have never invested in the share market before, you need these people more than ever.
And I think we've had this topic, personally on the phone in months gone by. I don't know, we talk quite a bit. Is that sometimes everybody thinks that the content's going to come to you for free, but believe it or not, quality content is actually hidden behind a paywall. Now, I know when I was at, because you ran a conference, I was at the Golden Alternative Investments Conference last year. I was a speaker there. It seemed to be there was a whole lot of people suddenly realizing that there was this whole world out there for them and they could access this information via conferences and by hearing people talk. But it seemed to me that in Australia, that was where the tone changed. That was when there was a little bit more of an interest in gold stocks in particular. Now, let's take 2019 and take it all the way back to 2009 when you first started your conference. How have you seen investor interest change?
Well, that's a really interesting question, because when I started in 2009, there was a little bit of interest in gold and gold stocks, because at that time, and we have to look at it and go, everything's a cycle. And back then, 2009, up to about 2011, 12, it was a little bit of a bull market in that sector. So 2009 to 2011 saw a good lot of interest. I wouldn't say it was, where I think it's going, but it was certainly good. But the time between 2012 and 2018, 19 was starting to get a bit of interest, but 2012 to 2018, tough. You're looking at a silver price, which was down in the toilet at like $12, $13.
That's in Australian dollars.
Sorry?
That's in Australian dollars at one point too.
Yes, at one point it did get down to that in Aussie dollars, because we were almost parity, I think, with the US dollar as well. So yeah, it was nuts. And so silver was very unloved. People couldn't see value in gold stocks, and because they said, well, where's the dividend? And they couldn't see why they should invest in gold, in physical gold. And so what most people are, and I don't like to paint everybody with the same brush, but most people would like somebody to work it out for them and for them to make the money. That's why they love things like ETFs, or, put it with a fund and the fund will do all the work for me. Well, what people also need to know is funds need to make money as well, and that they can also lose money. And I just think people need to take responsibility. And as you said just before, do your own research, get people like yourself and Rick around and use their intelligence, but then do your own homework.
So surround yourself with people smarter than you and learn from them. That's really the crux of it, isn't it?
Yep. Especially today, when you've got a lot of people that really don't understand about how to protect and grow their wealth. And that's what I'm always on about, protect and grow your wealth and generational wealth. Most people don't get taught it in schools. They don't get taught it in universities. What they get taught to do, they get taught, go to school, get a job, get good wages, then you can buy yourself a house, get that brand new car, and off you go. Have 2.5 children and have a lovely life. None of that actually makes sense, especially where we're sitting today. Because right now we have, as I said, I believe we've got a liquidity crisis. I think it's going to come back to bite us. Right now they're pumping dollars into the market to stop prices from falling. Now, what happens there is the people that are not in the markets, people that are not investing at the moment, and that's, by the way, that's probably 50% of the population, if not more, they're the losers in this. So what we're going to find I believe, is as we go forward in this liquidity crisis, we're going to find that there's going to be a lot of people that will not, will be doing it tough. And so the break between those that have and have not is going to get wider. And as a result, we're going to see a lot more social unrest. But here in Australia, we're an island. And we've got a lot of gold.
Yeah. Do you know, I've read some great comments. We might delve into why we don't have more gold at our central bank because we've got too much underground. I want to come back to the point you made about us not being taught about wealth, growing our wealth and our investments at school, because it's not. And I'm pretty sure it's the same in countries around the world. Australia's not unique in that disconnect of how to, you know, understanding the economy. That's one part of it. The second part of it is how to grow your wealth. What do you reckon? What's going to kick us into changing our short-term thinking? And I know we're speaking generally because not everybody has short-term thinking. Some people are planning for their retirement at 22. Some people hit 72 and go, oh, whoops, what am I going to do? What is the kicker for us to change our short-term thinking? Is it the pandemic?
It's a very interesting question. It's interesting. I think that, look, when I was in my 20s, all I was interested in was, boys going out, having a drink at the bar and what I was going to wear on Friday night. You do not think about how to look after yourself on a long-term basis. And, some people say money's the root of all evil. I say, no, money gives you freedom, and freedom allows you to give back to others. And ultimately, what I say to people is, what is your purpose on this earth? Well, if you can be financially free enough and understand how to get yourself into a position where you're not working paycheck to paycheck, then if you can work a way to have passive income and generational wealth, that will allow you to give back to others. And ultimately, I think that's what we're here for. Giving back to others is really important, not just making money hand over fist just for yourself.
I like that answer.
To answer your question of how do we change it, well, I think we're going to have to. I think we need another shock. That's not going to be pleasant, but I suspect it will be inevitable. You cannot keep kicking the can down the road. I mean, here in Australia, we're doing, in terms of debt levels, we're doing better than most. But our debt levels are increasing, as is our unemployment. Now, you can't have government stimulus forever. And here's the thing I also say to people, there's a disconnect between, a government is giving money out. The money has to come from somewhere, and they're printing it like crazy. You can't print gold. So I think if you looked at a share price, if you looked at dollar versus gold in stocks, now, the graph, if it's in dollar terms, is going up at about a 45-degree angle. Mm-hmm. But if you looked at it from the price of gold paid in stocks, it's losing value. It's going the other way. It's a really interesting chart to look at.
Oh, I'd like to see that chart. I haven't seen it. That's great.
And so it's going up in dollar terms, but it's going down in gold terms. Interesting way to look at it. And that's where people aren't really understanding the fact that, a gold coin, and E.B. Tucker, who's written a book, and for those people listening to this, there's a great book out there called Why Gold, Why Now by E.B. Tucker. And he demonstrates it beautifully with a 1 ounce gold coin. And, I should have got my gold here.
Yes, you should have.
I do. Anyway. He does it with a 1 ounce gold coin. I'll do it with another 1 ounce. There we go. So a 1 ounce gold coin, right?
Perfect.
And so he shows you this, and he says, back 100 years ago, or even 50 years ago, you could have bought that 1 ounce gold coin with, this width of dollar bills. Today, that 1 ounce gold coin hasn't changed at all. It is still a 1 ounce gold coin. But if you would like to purchase that, it's going to be this many dollar bills. It's a really interesting analogy, and I think that that's what people understand. It comes down to purchasing power.
It's only when you see your fiat currency stacked up on each other that you realize how many more of them it takes to buy the exact same ounce of gold, because an ounce of gold isn't even heavy. You can hold it, on 2 fingertips sort of thing. That's really I've seen a similar example of that. I know something like that's available on the internet. I think Visual Capitalists do it. They do great visual representations.
Yeah, they do.
But that's the way to understand how your money is losing value, but how the gold hasn't changed.
Correct. Yeah.
All right, we're going to move on now and start getting into our area of expertise, and that is the mining industry in Australia. Now, you've been an advocate of the mining industry in Australia for a very long time. How did you end up, I mean, obviously, you're a self-directed investor in gold, but how did you end up being so involved in the Aussie mining industry?
Oh, there's a very funny story behind that. I get on very well with my ex-husband, and I came back to Australia in 2003, and I couldn't get a job. So my little boy said to his dad told his dad I couldn't find work, and I was, it was tough. It was very tough. I couldn't literally, it was hand to mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And so my ex came to see me and said, "Why don't you start a mining conference?" And I said, "The only thing I know about mining, Chris, is that's a very large diamond." And he basically said, "Well, I'll help you. I'll introduce you to X, Y, and Z." I did a joint venture with somebody. I started a mining conference, and then I realized how fascinating rocks were.
Yes.
And how fascinating mining, because everything is either in the world is either mined or grown.
Yes.
So, and here in Australia, what do we live on? We live on agriculture and resources.
Mm-hmm.
And so then my passion got to be about understanding why most people in Australia don't even know what mining is, yet it's delivered such great wealth to our nation. From, the goldfield, the Victorian goldfields back in the 1800s and the gold rush period. And that pretty much built Melbourne, which is where you are, and beautiful buildings.
Yeah, actually, you can see Melbourne's wealth, especially if you go out to regional areas. You can actually see the mining wealth in these unbelievable historic buildings. They're just gorgeous. And then about 500 meters down the road, there's, where the bust happened, because that's where they stopped building big, beautiful buildings. But it is, you can actually see how the mining wealth has progressed through Australia, because, we've got the 1850s in Melbourne, where I'm from. Then over in the 1890s, that's when Western Australia, basically where all our gold comes from, and pretty much any other commodity anyone else in the world wants, comes from way out there. And they're still quite a wealthy state too, because of all the riches in the ground.
Well, I would say, yes, there is a lot of gold in Western Australia, but have a look at the Renaissance down in Victoria at the moment with the Victorian goldfields. Kirkland Lake Gold with their Fosterville deposit, which was, by the way, looked at for approximately 10 or more years, where people just couldn't find it. And what happened was they had to just go a bit deeper, and they hit the mother lode. And that's created a whole renaissance around the Victorian goldfields.
I'll tell you right now, talking about Fosterville is actually my favourite Rock to Riches story. Years and years ago, back when it was owned by Newmarket, a mate of mine was a diesel mechanic in the Newmarket gold mine, where Fosterville is now. And it was a dog of a mine. This is the thing that people don't realise. It was a mine nobody wanted to touch. It cost too much to run. There was something with the leaching process that was all wrong. And then I was actually talking earlier today to one of the guys involved in it. And basically, it took Canadians to come to Australia, had a quick look at the geology and went, "Oh no, you're doing it all wrong, Australia."
Correct.
That's pretty much what happened.
Yeah, it took you're absolutely right. It took the Canadians to come out here, look at it with a different set of eyes, and goodness me, they have found the mother lode and some, which is a really, really good, I guess, lesson to be learned. Not just that we need Canadians out here, because I love you Canadians, but really.
I'm a big fan of Canadians and Americans. They can come out here and bring their mining riches with them. We'll help them out.
But I think I think sometimes a fresh set of eyes on a deposit can change things.
I'd wager too, and again, you've been around longer than I have, that Australia lost a lot of intellectual capital when it came to the mining sector after the GFC, because a lot of our miners nearly went bust in that time. There wasn't a lot of capital for them. I mean, when you're talking about a gold bear market from 2012 to 2015, there was no love for a lot of these companies. So I think what we needed was basically the intelligence, the really well-trained people to come out here and show us how to get the most out of our ground.
Look, I'll back up our Aussie guys. I think we've got some fantastic people out here that do understand how to find gold. I mean, there's been some fantastic discoveries, and there continues to be. I mean, look at De Grey Mining, which is an ASX stock. For many years, you know, Novo Resources, which is Canadian, you know, they were up in the Pilbara in Western Australia, and Quentin Hennigh was saying, you know, I know this looks like a Witswatersrand type style deposit,
Yep.
and I believe that there's gold in them there hills. But everybody looked at the Pilbara as iron ore only. He looked at it with a fresh set of eyes. And right now, we've got De Grey Mining finding a beautiful deposit up there and continuing to expand the resource. We've got Kairos Minerals, they're also up there. They're finding some stuff. Kalamazoo also up there. Now, Kalamazoo, of course, one of your favorite stocks, Shay, I believe, because I think you recommended that to your subscribers when it was about 22 cents or something.
Try lower, 12 cents.
Okay, so
I'm not one to brag, but it's not my favorite because we're not allowed to have favorites as an analyst. But Kalamazoo, while they're out in the Pilbara and they're doing, you know, they've really just started to cut their teeth out there. They're part of this Victorian gold rush renaissance, and they're really trying to mimic what Fosterville has done.
Yeah.
And they've got Novo Resources has taken a stake in that company as well recently too.
Yeah.
Oh, excuse me.
Yeah, there's look, I think there's and you know, if we're talking to an international audience here, there is a lot more interest in Australian mining and specifically gold. And now that silver's tipped over $20 an ounce, I think there's going to be renewed interest in our silver deposits as well. But, you know, we've also got people like Impact Minerals who are finding really high grade PGE minerals up in and around Broken Hill. So it's a renaissance in the Australian mining sector, which I think will pull us through this pandemic better than some of the other places around the world, to be honest.
Could the lucky country actually be that lucky again, that once again, you know, holes in the ground really help us pull us through the pandemic? Because essentially our giant holes in the ground 10 years ago is what saved us when China came in with all of their stimulus money. Could we actually do something like that again?
Well, I think if I'm looking at what the gold price is doing and what our currency is doing, even though our currency has strengthened a little bit, the gold price in Aussie dollar terms is the highest it's ever been at 2,600. And you know, for investors that are looking for opportunities, I do think that the Australian gold industry is set for another re-rating, if you like. So I think that there are lots of opportunities out here. If you don't live in Australia and you're not quite sure, then you do need to have somebody on the ground here that can help you with who's who in the zoo, because you can have the best deposit in the world. But if you put the wrong people around it, they'll stuff it up quicker than a rat up a drain pipe.
Yeah. Yes, and I'm pretty sure I've got a war story or two I can tell about that. All right, Kerry, we're probably coming to the end of our time. Now, it's been great talking with you. Before we go though, I want to have one final message out there for Aussie investors as well as North American investors. And what would that be? What is the best way to take advantage of, or where's the best place to start when it comes to educating yourself on how to protect your
wealth? Well, Shay, you're going to be a keynote speaker. We're doing a virtual gold conference on the 20th of August. Where people can check in, and we'll have a number of the. I'll pick who we should have on that program and I'll probably talk to you a little bit about that as well, because we want to have, you know, the some of the better stocks rather than just, you know, let's just pick anyone for the sake of it.
I've always got a long list of companies.
I think in terms of if people are watching this from North America and they want to know what's going on, then I would suggest coming on to the 20th of August virtual conference would be good. You do a lot of, you put out a lot of information all the time. I've also got a YouTube channel. It's called the Gold and Alternative Investments Show on YouTube. And I talk to a bunch of people on that, and, you know, there's a lot of stuff out here, but I do think that there's opportunity in investing in gold equities, but you have to know who's who in the zoo.
This comes back to find people smarter than you and learn from them, and don't be afraid to make your own decisions.
Correct. Couldn't have said it better myself.
All right, Kerry, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining me today. Enjoy your freedoms in Sydney while we've all got to be covered up in masks down here in Melbourne.
It's a crazy world. Thanks very much, Shay.
Thank you very much. I'll see you later, Kerry.
Cheers.
Bye.